Hi, good afternoon, class. For those whom I have not yet met, my name is Christopher King, and this is my video presentation for this week's discussion regarding role play in, I guess, three different segments of a family session. Throughout this video presentation, I'll be popping in very briefly, given our allotted amount of time, just to give a brief explanation regarding my reasoning behind choosing certain forms or styles of interaction for my answers to the prompts that we were presented. So we'll begin with the first prompt. So one of the fundamental things that we learned this week were the basic components of a structural family therapy session. And included as the first part of that session are joining as well as accommodating. And joining in the sense that we are getting to know the family a little bit better. The therapist or facilitator is joining as part of the family unit. And so we're learning a lot more about the inhabitants of that unit. What are the subgroups? What are the boundaries like between all of the groups? How are they contextualizing their problems with each other? How are they communicating? And how are they working through problems collaboratively when they encounter an issue or change? Also, a part of the initial portion of the session is joining or accommodating, accommodating. And you're accommodating in the sense that you are letting the family know that you are working to understand where they're coming from just a little bit better. I term this building rapport, which I think is important in any therapy session, but you're just working to make the family a little bit more comfortable with you as a therapist and facilitator of the conversation that they're about to have with each other. Hello, Mrs. Thompson. Hello, Mr. Thompson. And I want to shake everybody's hand, so I'm going to shake Sally's hand. Hello, Sally. And Tommy. Hello, Tommy. Now, you guys just get comfortable. There's plenty of seating, so just sit wherever you feel most comfortable, and let's begin. So the way that we're going to begin today is I want to just lay out some expectations because this is our first session together. So rightfully so, since this is our first session together, I want to learn a little bit more about each and every one of you. So what that means is I will be posing questions not only to mom and dad, Tommy and Sally, but also to you guys as well. And it would help me if everyone participated in this session. I want to know more about each and every one of you, simply because that will allow me to get to know the family as a whole a little bit better. And so once I pose those questions and once I get to know you guys just a little bit better, we can move into perhaps some exercises. We may not be able to get to it during our first session. That may have to wait till our second session. But I do want to practice some exercises eventually that allow me to better understand how you guys actually move through the world together, how you're facing issues together, how you're facing change together, how you're communicating, what you see each other as. And so I may give you a scenario. We may enact a little role play. I may say, hey, this is the situation. Can you show me what a conversation regarding that situation would normally be like for your family? So this session will primarily revolve around me getting to know you guys just a little bit better. And that goes for everyone, not just the parents, but the children as well, okay? So before we begin, does anyone have any questions regarding the process for our first session? No. Okay. And for this next prompt, it's regarding just noticing that two parties within a session are sort of bickering or arguing with each other, and that's not productive to what the ultimate goal for a structural family therapy session is or does. And so obviously the therapist or facilitator would want to step in some way to try to make this more constructive in some way. So the technique that I chose was one that we actually learned in SW 503, interpersonal processes, and that's the finding common ground exercise. And I'll explain it to the mock people that are in the session. And so you'll have a better understanding of what the exercise is and what I hope it accomplishes in this particular session. Okay, so I'm just going to step in just for a moment here, and I want to say that as the facilitator of this overall conversation, what I'm currently hearing is two conversations being had at one time rather than one collaborative and communicative conversation with each other. So really, about all that accomplishes is ensuring that neither message is conveyed to either party. And that doesn't get us to a solution to this particular issue that brings you guys to me today. And so at moments like these, I like to take a step back as a facilitator of conversations and fall back to a basic skill that goes underutilized for many of us, specifically in arguments, and that's simply just listening to each other. So what we're going to do is take turns getting our points across to each other, and the other person is going to be the gatekeeper of whether or not the message was properly conveyed based on what's explained back to them. And so just to give an example, Mrs. Thompson, what you will be doing is giving me the 3 main reasons why you feel that little Sarah should continue therapy even after checking out of inpatient, because you are under the assumption that she should. So you're going to explain the top 3 reasons to everyone in the room, but mainly to Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, your job during her explanation is to simply listen. So you don't have to work to come up with what your response will be. You don't have to work to come up with little jabs here and there. Nothing. All you have to do is just listen to make sure you are hearing the entire conveyed message to you. Because after she's done, what I would like for you to do is to simply repeat what you got out of what she just said to you. At that point, Mrs. Thompson, it'll be your job to decide whether or not your complete message was conveyed. And the good thing about if it wasn't is you will have the opportunity to add a point here or there to ensure that your entire message is conveyed. And then guess what? We're going to flip the thing around and do it vice versa. So Mr. Thompson, you'll have the opportunity to do the same thing that Mrs. Thompson just did. And this may not bring us the solution to the issue that we're facing today, specifically what brought you guys here. But at the very least, what it will ensure is that both sides are heard. And if there is any commonality at all in both sides of the argument, that sets us up for the best success regarding finding a way to negotiate or compromise or ultimately just a solution to what this issue is, and that's whether or not Sarah should continue with therapy, specifically after checking out of an inpatient facility. And we'll hear what Sarah has to say as well. She'll get the chance to chime in on this conversation because she will be affected as well. But to begin, I just want to practice by listening to each other rather than assuming that we know what the other person is going to say. And this is an assumption on my part. I'll admit that I believe that maybe because this is not the first time you guys have had this conversation. And so the basic assumption is, if I've heard this before, I already know what you're going to say, but that's not necessarily the case. So since what we practice, we get better at, let's take the opportunity to practice literally just listening to each other. Okay, and as the final prompt or question, we are to give the family that we just worked with homework for the next session. And in response to this prompt, I find that I am inclined to take a more strengths-based approach in the sense that I want to highlight what the family can utilize as a resource that they may have already utilized that may have just gone dormant, and that's the ability to listen to each other. And then I have some notes for what they can expect for the next session, and I'll explain all of that in the final part of this video presentation. And I just want to thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a great day and enjoy the rest of your night. Okay, guys, so I appreciate everything that has been said during the session, and I believe that's actually all the time that we have for today. So first and foremost, I just want to commend each and every one of you. Tommy, Sally, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you guys did great work today. It's really difficult even getting started having these conversations, let alone delving into deep-rooted issues within your family unit. And so I really commend the work that all of you have done today. Importantly, we practice something that I feel is extremely important but underutilized in communication with each other, and that's just simply listening to one another. So in order for you guys to have the opportunity to practice this skill outside of the context of a therapy session, just take a moment throughout this next week before our next session and note moments where you really felt like you've listened to what the other person is trying to convey within your family. And when you've noted that you've really listened and you feel like you've really gotten the message that they were trying to convey, repeat that back to them just so they can understand that what they had just said has been heard by somebody who really cares about them. And when you feel like you've done an exceptional job, note that. And what we will do at the beginning of the next session to sort of get warmed up is just read off what we've noted as opportunities that we took in the last week to really listen to one another, to build the groundwork for better communication with one another, to build the groundwork for solving our problems with one another. So, again, good work, guys, and I hope you have a great week, and I will see you during our next session.